Welcome everyone to the Rick Cooper Show. I am absolutely buzzing excited to have this man on this morning. I'm going to welcome Craig White. Some of you may already be familiar with him, some may not. Those who aren't, this is a brief introduction to this great man. He's a high performance coach, a mentor, a retreat facilitator, and a team building consultant. Craig has over 25 years experience working predominantly in professional sports, most notably rugby. He's worked or consulted for more than 30 different rugby nations, perhaps more than any other coach in his field. He is widely respected around the world for his willingness to embrace different cultures and mentor developing staff within those countries. He's the founder of Craig White Mentoring, a company dedicated to the development of leadership, purposeful vision, and interpersonal skill development within professional sports coaching. In recent years, he's also working within the field of men's health and wellness, offering private men's coaching and group retreats. He's a creator of Men Without Masks, an amazing retreat that I've been part of. He's an organization dedicated to support the lives of men who want to overcome limiting beliefs and move forwards into a life of inspired purpose. Craig has dedicated most of his working life to pursuit of learning how to improve performance, and in most recent years, how to cultivate a meaningful purpose in life. His quest for learning has taken him from books and academia to the gym, rugby field, the ashrams of India, the jungles of Asia, the mountains of South America, and ultimately from his head into his body, his head and into his heart and into his body. Wow. This guy's been a massive influence on my life. I fucking love him to pieces. Craig, welcome to the podcast.
Rick, it's a pleasure, mate. I love you and your energy as well, and I love what you stand for, and I love where you're going with your life. So for me, this is just like talking to one of my best mates, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Mate, I'm buzzing, Craig. So fucking excited to see you today. I've been up since about 4:30, walking the dog, just trying to get rid of some energy, seeing you this morning. But how's your morning been, mate? What have you been up to?
Mate, my morning's been amazing. Every day this week, I've been up at 4:45, online with a group of 12 incredible men at 6 a.m. in the morning, every single day for 90 minutes. We're in week one of a program that I'm trialing at the moment, a 28-day program called the Embodied Leader. So it's all about getting into the body, unleashing the wisdom of the body, charging up the body with breath work, with movement, with sound, with our senses, with our nervous system to really kind of remove any limiting blocks, remove tension, open us up to kind of the great leader that lives within inside all of us. So we're coming to the end of week one, and I'm really looking forward to the next 3 weeks. It's just amazing for me to be able to do that. I love to teach in that way.
I love it, Craig. I love it. Every time I speak to you, there's just something else that you're like a sensei. I always think, where the fuck does he get all this knowledge from to do this? I love it. It's just so interesting. But Craig, I want to share with me, look, where's the journey to this start with? Because for those that don't know you, you've had this, you're just like the go-to guy in high performance within the rugby area, and you're transferring that into a much broader spectrum into the world with everything you've learned. So tell us where and how.
Yeah, I mean, I get asked that question a lot, and every time I get asked it, I guess my initial response is a bit different, and I get more clear. For me, when you ask when did it start, if we focus on it, when did it start? My interpretation of that is when did I start to look inside for the answers instead of look outside for the answers. That's my interpretation of what you mean. And I used to think it was about 12 years ago when I went on a yoga retreat, but I actually think it was before that. I always thought growing up, especially as a teenager, that I would be a professional rugby player, and that was my vision, and that was my goal. And then at the age of 19, I remember somebody putting an ecstasy tablet into my mouth in a club. And all of a sudden, I'm in my body, I'm having a great time, no inhibitions, I'm moving my body in ways that it's not moved before. I'm loving everybody, I'm loving men that I've been competing with. And so I kind of went through a period, I guess, in my late teens, early 20s, where it was an exploration of clubbing. It was the recreational drugs. It was connecting with your mates outside of that, deepening friendships, having some deeper conversations. And I didn't, and it was all secretive, you know, I wasn't going to tell my mum and dad about that, of course. And I'm not recommending anybody to do that. You know, there are some negatives and some catastrophes, obviously, that happen to people when they take recreational drugs at a young age. All I'm saying is, on my journey, it opened me up, and it made me realize that I was a loving man. You know, I wasn't that warrior that I like to show to the world, and that aggressor, and that tough guy, and that man with muscles. You know, there was so much more behind me. But at that age, it was all unconscious, Rick. I didn't really know what was happening. I just knew that I was having a great time at the weekends. I was having a shit time during the week. And I remember I was an odd carrier for a couple of years, and I hated Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday came, and I was buzzing, and I was in my body at the weekends, and really kind of, and I guess that journey over a number of years opened me up physically as well. It kind of opened me up to something greater than myself. And I didn't end up being a professional rugby league player, but I did end up moving into working as a coach in professional rugby, which has been for over 20 odd years now, 25, 26 years. Now, probably the more significant time in my life where I actually consciously felt, mate, you got to look inside here. You've got to really look inside of yourself. Don't know what that's going to look like, but you have to look inside of yourself to fulfill your potential, actualize your potential in this life. Was after I went on a yoga retreat in Thailand about 12 years ago. I didn't want to do yoga. I was working full time for the Welsh rugby team in a great job as the head of physical development and performance. And I was well known and well paid, lived in a nice place. And I went on a 1 month, not like a 1 day, a 1 month intensive yoga retreat. And it wasn't a yoga with hot pants and drinking smoothies. It was full on yoga with an Indian guru in Thailand. And to cut a long story short, it was a struggle, but over the course of the month, all the yogic practices and the philosophy of yoga and learning and becoming fascinated with that and moving and getting into my body and removing stiffness and trying to be quiet and noticing what came up made me realize that, Jesus, there's so much more in me that I am just not consciously aware of. I show a certain persona to the world, which was often that warrior, but there's so much depth inside of whatever I was that needed to be explored. And that came with, on one hand, excitement. It also came with fear, because some of the stuff that came up for me was like, well, fucking, there's a lot of anger in there, mate. There's a lot of sadness in there. You know, there's a lot of guilt in there. There's a lot of guilt towards women. There's a lot of anger towards your brother. There's a lot of disappointment about your dad. You know, what's all that stuff around your mum, and why you're always angry, and why do you have lots of guilt around women? And it was like, whoa. And there was other parts that I touched, was like having my heart ripped open, and it was a message saying to me, mate, do you know you're so much more than this, and there's so much in life. So after that journey, it was painful. I couldn't get out of the job. I had a midlife crisis. What was important to me before I went to Thailand wasn't important to me when I got back, and the conversation was dull. It was like, what the fuck am I doing here? So I had to get out of that job, and it took me a year to actually make the decision, you know, and not be frightened of leaving a high-paid job. So I left, and we went to live in Thailand. And strategically, you know, I did dip in and out of consultancy work for a number of years, which I still do. But outside getting paid for little kind of work here and there, it was just a long period, actually, of, I don't know, I mean, until this day, but it was definitely a long period of about 6 years where I traveled all over the world, and to explore myself, really. And that was an exploration of yoga, meditation, fasting, relationship building, sexuality, you know, yoga retreats, dark retreats, meditating in complete darkness, not eating for 21 days. I became a yoga teacher, I became a meditation teacher, I became a life coach, I became a leadership coach, I became a men's coach. And, you know, we could talk for days about what I've done in that period to have a clear definition of who I am, why I'm that person, where I'm heading, what I need with me to move towards where I'm heading, and how I serve in the world. And some of it was wonderful and some of it was painful and involved going into my stuff and emotions and working with therapists and coaches. But it's just been an incredible journey of self-discovery. And I see life, I view life as a game, actually. I don't believe that we have a divine purpose yet. And I don't, well, maybe we do, but I don't believe that we have a divine purpose and, you know, we're here for a reason. What I believe is that we are responsible for defining exactly who we are, defining exactly who we are not, defining what we're good at, what we're shit at, defining how to express our natural talents, defining what it is we love and is worth moving into, defining how we want to serve in the world, defining what our vision is, what our mission is, and what our purpose is in this life. And what I find in my work with men is whenever a man is in a tricky time in his life where it's difficult for him to clarify that, he gets in trouble. You know, he's more prone to stickiness, to addictions, to problems in relationships, to cowardness, to beating himself up, to alcohol abuse, to emotional abuse, and unfortunately, suicide. So I've spoke for a long time there, Rick, but that's kind of what's coming out of me at the moment in relation to your question of when did it all start for me?
Yeah, I wasn't going to interrupt you, mate. When you're in that flow, it's love it. I mean, you said a minute ago about you could talk about it for days. I could listen to you for days, and this podcast could go on for days because I just fucking love hearing about this journey and the self awareness you have. I'm going to bring you back a little bit because I want to talk about identity. And you said that you used to look outward, and it come to a point where you realised you had to go inward. So I'm going to ask you, when you looked outward, Craig, at life, and you wasn't looking inward, what did it look like? Like how was you cultivating an identity in yourself then that is so different from what it is now?
Yeah. I mean, I still look outwards, you know, I still look for information and materials, and, you know, we live in this wonderful world with full of richness. But my perception of it now is that there's no separation, really. It's kind of, I'm looking out what I feel on the inside and vice versa. But I guess to answer your question, Rick, for me, it was really a journey of wanting to be a hero. And now I understand that that was a necessary journey, but also an immature journey that men seem to go on. You know, for whatever reason, maybe I wasn't seen as a hero by my own father, for example. Maybe I didn't feel like a hero, and I had this quest to really kind of be a hero. So for me, it was sport. Sport was a wonderful way to express that, and I had a body that was good at sport, and it could move into sport, and I could express myself and maybe be a hero within sport. And I kind of fulfilled that a little bit. So I guess that, you know, the training I was doing, I was mad into training when I was a kid, and looking good and being buff and looking like the tough guy. And I didn't actually read a book really until I was about 18, believe it or not, and I've read thousands since. But so in those early years, it was just all about being buff and being a hero. And I also tried to be a hero through my interactions with women. Look, so I didn't know, but I was looking for recognition from a woman to validate me as a hero. And I always brought that tough guy approach to my relationships as well. And, you know, and making love to a woman was a conquest, like a hero's conquest, which I now know is bullshit. But it's just what I picked up growing up as a kid from other men and how they behaved. You know, it's like you have sex with a woman, it's a conquest. Yes. You know, you tell your mates, and then you build up your ego as a result of that. And it's unfortunate, really, that a lot of men still move through life looking for recognition and looking to be the hero through relationships with women. But it was part of my journey, and it's been part of my journey to let go of that and to respect women a lot more. A lot of my work has been about respecting women because I didn't as a kid, and also respecting the woman in me, respecting the soft side of me, the flowing side of me. and that openness to life, that yes to life, that loving, nurturing part of me, that's been part of my journey as well. So yeah, I guess that's what I was looking for. And then when I was about 19, 18, I started reading a lot, and then I just become a fascinated reader since. I read all the time, and I learn all the time. I'm fascinated by learning. But it used to be all books, and it used to be all videos, and it used to be meeting that guy and networking with that guy and that guy and that guy, and that exists. But a lot of my learning now is on the inside. I'm learning every morning this week, doing the embodied work with the guys on Zoom, and breathing and visualizing and resting and closing my eyes and going inside and sending love into different parts of my body, and then visualizing my future and what I want and why I want it. So learning for me now is outer and inner.
Can I just ask you on that quickly? Sorry to break that.
Oh, I'm done there anyway.
Is something that fascinates the shit out of me with all this is, like, I see a lot of your old self in myself. I think that's where the resonance came when I first reached out to you nearly 2 years ago. A lot of it stems around that hero inverted commas journey and competition. That for me personally, it was always a toxic mix. Like everything you just said, it was a mirror of exactly what I was in my 20s. That need for significance, that need for women and conquest, and that gave you acceptance around other men and significance around other men and in the world. And then you're talking to us through this morning about real deep connection. And what fascinates me is being in that professional sport in high performance world where you are connected with men in a team environment, but it's all geared on a real competitive level. But then this morning you connect with men in a non-competitive level for a deep connection with themselves and others. And I get fascinated with the difference in dynamic, because I talk a lot that I generally believe that when we compare or we compete, we disconnect from our authenticity and who we truly are inside. And I'm really interested in where your feelings of the real difference in them two arenas, that the smalling of deep connection, of no competition, and that drive in life to be the fucking best in the world. What does that look like? What's the atmosphere? What's the environment like in them two different domains?
Great question. I'll come to the question, but leading into the question, I just want to elaborate on, and this is really important, on when that relentless quest to be a hero and a warrior, even though the warrior still lives inside of me and I love him, but when that relentless quest seemed to drop away from me, and this is really important, was when I was authentically seen and accepted and heard by a group of men without judgment. And I'll come to when that was. So even during my years working as a professional coach in professional rugby full time, and even now, if I dip my feet into it, that hero archetype is still really, really dominant within professional sport, and it has to be to a degree. But for me, when the pressure to be a hero dropped away, was probably, it wasn't one event, but one significant event was actually when I did some training with an organization called the Mankind Project. I went on a new warrior weekend with an organization called the Mankind Project, and there was, including staff, there was probably about 50 men. And then I went on a little journey with this organization, doing a little bit more training and going to some men's groups. And it was quite significant for me because all of a sudden you're seen for who you are. They don't expect you to be anything else other than who you are. And I know from the work that I do with men, and you've been on the retreat, how significant it is on day 5 when as individual men, we're surrounded by 20 odd other men, and they all see us for who we are and give us feedback and tell us the gifts that they see inside of us, and also tell us a little bit about some of the areas, that blind spots that we need to be aware of. It's like, fucking hell, this is what I was longing for from my father, my uncle, my grandfather, my brother, the elder men in my life, the masculine part of life as a kid. And I didn't get it because none of us really get it, because we place too much pressure on dads. There's a lot of pressure on dads. You know, in ancient tribes, it was multiple men that blessed the little kid, not only dad. But once we do get the blessing, receive the blessing from other men, something in our nervous system shifts. It's like, and you and I have seen men like drop to the knees, you know, with tears of joy and acceptance of, wow, am I really that good? Oh man, I don't need to be a hero anymore. Come on, let's embody these other archetypes. Let's be more loving, and let's go inside and become the magician, and let's step into our king. And now I'm ready to talk about my vision and my mission and my purpose. So leading back into your question about those two different environments, I do believe, like this morning was a real kind of easy environment for me to be in and be comfortable and be myself. You know, I even sat in meditation with my top off and looking at these guys on the screen. Some of the guys had the tops off. We were so comfortable with each other. And I do admit, if I go into a rugby environment, you know, you can't always be like that. You know, there's a level of period of trust and safety that needs to happen. People need to trust you in that environment. In my own life's mission, I do believe that it's possible to go into a sporting environment and cultivate, you know, deep trust and deep sensuality and sincerity and kindness and love and affection and support and seeing each other. Because I've done it in Uruguay. I've done it with the Uruguay rugby team. But in my judgment, the culture of Latin America is a little bit more conducive to that. I do believe it can be done within UK sport, for example, but it probably takes a little bit longer. And to be honest, there's so many areas I could go with my own life. It's probably not an area that I will go into. I still work with a lot of professional coaches and players, but I tend to work more in a mentoring capacity with them, as opposed to spending time within the environment like I used to. So I'm trying to get to the coaches so they can filter things down into their own environment. But sport's interesting, Rick. I mean, the origins of sport in history was sacredness, an expression of divinity, expression of spirit. And obviously materialism and the type of society that we live in, professional sport is dominated by winning at all costs and money pressures and politics and governments, organizations, and you know, comes with manipulation in some cases. But there's still that sacredness there. And rugby as a sport, you know, it does still have core values of sacredness and honor and respect. And, you know, I do believe a shift is taking place at the moment, actually, maybe through the filter of mental health in sport or through the filter of suicide in sport. But there's definitely a shift happening in sport where people are becoming more open and expressing feelings. And this can only be good.
Do you know what, Craig? You just hit the nail on the head of something I was going to ask you about. There is, I think this shift is so timely because sport is sacred, and coming from rugby background as well. What we've touched on there, I think, especially around the retreat and what we've experienced, is healthy initiation. It's initiation that you're talking about there, and it brings me back into that arena of sport. I mean, I feel a lot of pressure as a dad, like a fucking lot of pressure. I feel like it's all on me. There is a lack of community around, you know, where we live. We have, you know, a lack of male energy, as in far as granddads and uncles around me is concerned. So I feel like a lot of pressure as a father. And hence why I come on the retreat. I wanted deep, authentic connection with other men where I can bring my son into an arena with these men that I know on a deep level, to help him become initiated throughout his life. And I feel like in sport, sometimes something that really put me off with rugby, and I couldn't get my head around it a lot, was the unhealthy initiation of some of the games you play, like the wombat. You know, you're crowd surfed through naked and whatever fingers and thumbs going, whatever holes anyone can find. But it's almost like you're being initiated into something that you've made to feel almost uncomfortable and vulnerable. And there's the element of distrust because you've got fellow men undergoing this initiation process to welcome you in, but at the same time are crossing boundaries around your physicality, and unsafeness for you to be able to, you know, be naked, to express your feelings, because there's this macho alpha environment around that as well. And I feel like the retreat for me and what you've created and cultivated is bringing men together and being able to open up on a physical and emotional level. And that's the fucking beauty of that retreat, is that you've managed to cultivate something that allows men to feel vulnerable on such a multiple of embodied levels. And I do think that massive shift in professional sport now is what you've just talked about, is that shift's about to occur because of the willingness to have nurturing, vulnerable, deep, meaningful relationships now in the professional arena. And it brings me back to the retreat, Craig. So I want you to talk about it because it is such a powerful fucking process. And many people say to me, oh, Rick, you know, for me to come and work with you or go on to the retreat you went on, do I have to be in a really shit place? Like, it's not for me because I haven't got any issues, or like I'm not in a shit place, or I'm not down in the dumps. And I say to them, like, you've got to be joking. Like, I booked on that retreat with you, Craig, because I'm brimming with energy. Like, I was excited. I was on countdown with 12 days to go to come on the retreat, to learn, to be a part of something, to meet other men, to connect on such a fucking deep level and have like deeper meanings in my life that was going to enable me to enhance and build on what I knew my purpose was, and to find deeper meaning to it. Like, talk us through that retreat, Craig. For me, it's just every man's got to go on it, whether you're in a place where you feel like you need help or whether you're in a place where you're full of life anyway, you just need that deeper connection.
Can I lead into that? Because you mentioned something really important that not a lot of people working in sport discuss, and that's initiation. And you mentioned initiation in sport, and I'd like to talk to that. And if there's any amateur sportsmen watching this, or to be honest, maybe any people working in professional sport, you might get triggered. I mean, I can only talk about rugby. So within rugby, especially as you shift down from elite professionalism down the ranks, there still is incredibly unhealthy initiations. And you and I have been through them. You know, take your clothes off, close your eyes after you've played your first game, shave your head. You know, I've even seen guys piss on each other. I've even seen guys slapping on each other, spitting on each other. I mean, I get it. It's kind of you're surrendering to something bigger than you, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
To a lesser degree, it still happens at the professional level, but not as much. Not as much. But there's a huge but here. It's because healthy initiations don't exist for young men anymore.
Yeah.
So we can't blame the young men in rugby because society doesn't give them any initiation anymore. And there's something incredibly ancient inside of us that looks for initiation, especially in our teenage years. You know, in times gone by, you know, the ancient tribes and civilizations of the world and societies of the world, in order to temper the young teenage man who had a significant surge in testosterone and had a lot of anger, in order to temper him, they would create some kind of initiation where he had to go through a little bit of discomfort. There was learning from elders, you know, there was some kind of ordeal. And then when he stepped through that fear, it was almost as if life slapped him in place. And it's like, wow, I get it. I get it. This is not this manhood thing is something to take seriously. It's sacred. It's important.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so many different examples of those type of initiations, you know, going into the forest, taking hallucinogenic medicine, not eating, put into the wilderness and having to survive for a week. spending a year with the elders in isolation in a forest and learning about the ancient ways of living. And unfortunately, the white man has abolished all these because they thought it was weird. So they don't exist anymore. But there's that part of us that craves for it. But the initiations that we see in teenage boys, and not only teenage boys, in teenage boys that live in 30-year-old men, is fucking pathetic. So part of the work that we do in retreat, as you say, is a healthy initiation, you know, and during the end of that retreat, you know, there's a feeling of, I've been initiated here. Ooh, what does it mean now for my life? So a lot of the work I do involves initiation, the retreat, my private intensives that I do, so even some of the online work, the work that I'm doing at the moment with these guys in the mornings, it's 28 days of initiation. Every 90-minute period in the morning is initiation because we're going in deep. And sometimes we don't want to go in deep, but we go in deep together and the magic comes as a result of that. So I wanted to speak to that and lead on to the retreat that way, Rick. And there's fear with initiation. You know, that's why if you see our stuff on social media, I know a lot of men, thousands of men think, wow, that looks incredible. Man, that could change my life. That could transform me. I'm going to send a message. And then they go quiet. It's almost Mr. Fear knocks on the door. It's like, whoa, nah, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I'm okay as I am. But there's a burning inside of, mate, all right, your life's okay, but you've got more. Or, mate, your life's fucking shit. You know what I mean? You've just not lived your potential. You need some support. Go into this retreat. But they don't always turn up.
You know what, Craig? Saying it's literally coming out in my body. It's being seen. I think what it is the initiation is such an amazing experience because you get to be seen by others, but just that process allows you to see yourself. And I think that when people reach out, it will help fucking thousands of men. Remember that mask will help thousands of men. It has helped thousands of men. And the men that sort of retract a little bit is because they get that yearning to do it. They know it's for them. And the fear kicks in of, fuck, I'm going to be seen. I feel vulnerable. I feel weak. So we retract and we convince ourselves and tell us a story. Actually, I'm all right. Because that fear comes up. And most people in the world, I'm generalizing, especially for us men, is there's such a fear to be seen and find a weakness. But it's not about that. It's being seen and being supported. And that's the fucking difference.
Yeah.
And that once you can get seen by your fellow man and have that support around your strengths, your talents, your vulnerabilities, and be initiated by them, the beauty of it is you get to see your fucking self in all of your power, which is where, like you mentioned earlier, you have that big breath of just like, oh, fuck, I'm good enough. We no longer have that conversation of, am I good enough? I'm not good enough. Do I fit in? Do I not fit in? It is all of a sudden you just breathe and you're like, fuck me, I'm good enough for the world.
It's such a paradox, Rick, isn't it? Because the very thing that could set you freer, being seen, is the very thing that we are absolutely shit scared of.
Yeah.
Wow, I've got to show myself. I've got to show who I really am. Now, what's also interesting in my experience is the men I'm working with, you know, in the online stuff, one-on-ones, retreats, it seems that there's a shift occurring where men are actually the ones I work with, they're getting used to showing some of the dark stuff, if you like. But the biggest challenge is showing our light, showing our greatness, unleashing all that incredible childlike qualities that were suppressed, unleashing our talents, speaking to the world about what you love, you know, becoming a leader, activating our leadership. It's that stuff that we're shit scared of. And when we approach the release of that, that's when the body shuts down. It's like, whoa, fucking hell. And it's not easy, you know what I mean? There's a lot of trauma locked up in our tissues. And, you know, we've all been through trauma. I mean, relatively speaking, I look back at my life, I think, wow, what a beautiful blessing. I don't feel like I was blocked so much. My life's been a gift. But, you know, as you know, some men have been through horrible traumas, and women, and it's not easy. It's not easy, but we still need safety in some form. Yeah. We still need to feel part of a group in some form, to feel a sense of belonging. And we do need to go into our depth and reclaim our gifts that we suppressed or repressed growing up in order to survive and in order to receive love from others and not be abandoned. It's complicated, but yeah, it's a shame, but at the same time, some men are doing the work.
Yeah, safety is a big word in all that. I think is that because men generally don't feel safe because of society, because of the roles, because of the masks we have to play, we lose the ability, like you mentioned earlier, to tap into an element of us as boys, the creative part, the expressive part. That you mentioned the word love, express and love, two big words that I guess a lot of men will go into shells over. To be seen to be loving and soft, and them soft skills that we've pushed down, that we don't use, and society teaches us. You know, how many, even in the corporate world, Craig, they don't concentrate on soft skills, on communication, on relationship building, because it requires us to get creative, to be expressive, to be embodied again, into having fun and using ourselves to be, you know, loose. And like you say, you know, there's trauma around a lot of that for a lot of men. That when they have shown that and released that mask, they've been scorned.
You mentioned the word embodiment though, Rick, and it's being talked of more and more and more, and I'm glad, because it kind of sounds like an esoteric term, doesn't it? What do you mean embodied? What are you talking about? And I want to relate it to safety, because as you say, safety is everything. Feeling safe is everything. Feeling safe will stop a young man committing suicide. It's fucking everything. It really is. It's the catalyst for change. It's a catalyst to move into potential. And the key word here is feeling safe. It's a feeling in the body that, wow, I feel safe here. Now I can express. There's two sides of safety. One is the external, you know, for example, some of the advice I give to people is, you know, I can see that you're not safe. You know, learn about people in your life who really kind of take you for who you are. They support you for who you are. Spend more time with them. If you feel threatened by anybody, drop them out of your life. You know, kind of join a group. You know, feel into a group that could be worth being part of. So there's an external kind of facet to safety, and communication is important as well. Connect with people that ask you questions and you can develop rapport with, and connection. But the key piece is internal safety. Now, what's really interesting at the moment in the work I'm doing with this group of men online, and what I've done before, is what's evident, Rick, is whenever we drop in and I say to them, guys, find a place in your body that feels like a safe space for you, right? Most of them can find a reference point. It's a resource that we keep dropping back into. You know, we'll do some activity and then we'll drop back into the safe resource. But what's really important, what's really interesting is the men that have had a lot of trauma, you know, maybe sexual abuse, for example, you know, they've had their innocence taken away from somebody, generally a man, as a kid, or it might be some other type of trauma around loss or not feeling loved. They can't find that resource inside. And often they say things like, I can't find it. There's nothing safe inside of my body. And that's a sign of trauma. So in that case, we use external resources. Well, what outside of you do you feel safe with? You know, is there anybody in your life, your dog, people that you love? What can you anchor a feeling of safety into your body? So the journey into the body and doing all this breath work and movement and having awareness in the body and going into that is also a really important way to feel safe, Because when we feel safe inside of ourselves, we're not needy. We're not too needy with the world then, because we can find a resource inside of ourselves. So that's also a really important aspect of safety. And it's why body work, embodied work, intentional body work, intentional movement, intentional yoga, intentional dance, intentional exercise, but creating charge within the body in order to kind of open up parts that have been suppressed is so, so useful.
Yeah. And you said, well, you said then about feeling into your body safety. And if you can't find it, thinking of someone or something that makes you feel safe. And I think it's important to recognize that it's about what makes you feel safe inside, not what can protect you. Because I think a lot of men will look, and who I've worked with when we've done similar stuff, is that they will look and twist that into not feeling safe, but they externalize it again. Who can protect me rather than make me feel safe? And I think there's a big difference there.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure, mate. It's everything's a feeling.
Mm,
The body speaks to us
yeah.
all the time. The body speaks to us. There was a guy on our call this morning, and when we checked in, his words came as, my mind doesn't want to do anything this morning. Well, it isn't the mind, it's the body. There's a part of the body that's kind of, maybe I don't want to go there today. And the mind just interprets that. But ultimately, it's the body. It's always the body that's kind of deciding if we go into it or we kind of come away from it. The body speaks. And when we don't want to go into something, we stop breathing sometimes, it's like this wisdom of the body. The problem is, for grown men, the body sometimes still thinks that grown man is the little kid in the room getting shouted at by his mum, dad, and not accepted. And sometimes we don't go into that because of result, but slowly over time, getting into the body and really kind of opening up parts of the body that have been suppressed can manifest mentally as new thought patterns, as new belief systems, as dropping away of previously limiting beliefs, formation of new neuronal pathways that help us eventually to move into a world of I'm good enough.
Yeah, creating new reference points, isn't it?
Yeah,
creating new reference points for our neuroplasticity and our central nervous system to call on, rather than old stories and old limiting beliefs. I just want to lead this in now, Craig, to talking us, or just briefly describing the journey that we go on with Men Without Masks, because I'll describe it, but you'll do it far more justice. You journey us through the four archetypes or four energies of lover, warrior, magician, and our sovereign, our king. Talk us through that, Craig.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the retreats now. Of course, Men Without Masks is more than the retreat, but in the retreat, if you like, which is the creme de la creme of our services. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just juicy. I mean, there's so much in it. It's everything I've spoke about. It's sitting in circle, talking, it's laughing, joking, it's being serious, it's going deep, it's connecting with nature, it's breath work, it's meditation, it's movement, it's awareness, it's partner work, it's group work, it's small group work, it's all these things. Ultimately, the goal at the end of it is to bring more clarity to us in relation to what I said at the beginning, who we are, what we're grateful for, what drives us, where we're going, what is the reason we're going there, why we want to do it for the benefit of the world, where I am now and what do I need to get there. So it's bringing clarity to meaning in life and where to go with our future. And in order to bring that clarity, now throughout all history, as a human race, we've created models, because models help our psyche to understand, there's so many different models in the world, personality models, archetypal models, the horoscope is a model, Myers-Briggs is a model. We make sense of the world through models. And so we use a dead simple model. I remember when I was in my yoga days doing lots and lots and lots of yoga and talking about the 7 chakras. And if I'm being honest, I couldn't really feel them. I just pretended I could feel them. But after being involved in a men's group in Thailand, where we spoke about the 4 archetypes, and then moving into my work with the Mankind Project, which I'm grateful for, talking about the 4 archetypes, I decided to use it in my own work and bring all my own juice into this model. So as you say, the model is the archetype of the warrior, which is, the part of us which gets shit done in the world. It's the disciplined part of us, the determined part of us. And in the mature part of us, that's the warrior, we love and have a friendship with anger, and we can use it to get shit done. The immature version is scared of anger and gets into trouble. So that kind of warrior part is, you can feel it inside of you. It's that part that gets shit done and can be detached. And the lover part is the kind of counterpart to the warrior. It's, it's the part of us that opens up and removes boundaries and says yes to life. And it's a sensual part of us. It's the non-linear flowing part of us that can flex and not be so rigid. And it's the part of us that allows sadness to move through us and help us to cultivate even more depth of love. So the mature lover has a healthy relationship with sadness and welcomes manifestations of sadness. And the love is about our sexual energy, our sensuality. It's about connection through feelings ultimately. And then kind of the third part is the magician in us, and the magician is the part of us that is the seeker. The little kid, Mom, what's that? Dad's what that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And it's a beautiful energy that sometimes can get suppressed. Can you shut up for a minute? And sometimes we turn this part off, and then we get a knock on the door mid-life saying, hey man, come on, what's going on here? And that's the magician knocking on the door, knowing that there's more. So the magician is about knowledge, and it's also about external knowledge and information and using that information in the world. But ultimately, the mature magician, or the development of mature magician energy, is about coming inward and finding the answers within and going on that journey as a psychonaut, and going on that journey into the body as well, and unleashing parts of us that we suppressed or repressed, and bringing them out again. And the magician part of us, when we allow this part to flourish, is also the part that moves us and it helps us to evolve as men. We say in our work that the mature magician is the master of illusion. He faces up to fear, steps through fear, and then he can look at his life and say, man, why was I frightened of that? Now I've stepped through it, life looks different. Let's create a new reality. Unfortunately, a lot of people suppress this energy, and then they stay in what they think is how their life should be for many, 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 many years. Well, this is me. This is who I am. This is my house. This is my kids. This is what's important to me. I drink on a Tuesday. I watch TV on a Thursday, and I go away for 2 weeks every year. So that part gets suppressed. And there's always the knock on the door saying, mate, you've got to evolve here. But obviously we don't listen. So we continue to drink, and we continue to watch porn, and we continue to masturbate, continue to get addicted to TV and talk shit. And then the last part of us within this model is the king, or the sovereign part, or the leader within us, the gaffer, the manager, the CEO. And the king is, in his maturity, is really supposed to be the guiding force here. It's like, well, I can call him a magician. I've got my warrior at my disposal. I got my lover at my disposal. But, who am I? Where am I going? What's the mission? Why do I want to go there? What do I get from it? What do my family get from it? What do other people get from it? How can the world be a better place? Can I leave a legacy? Right, I've got that clarity. Come on, let's step through the fear again. Let's make a sacrifice. Oh man, I can feel joy. So the king's also about welcoming joy. So these are the 4 archetypes that we kind of move through in retreat. And we talk about them briefly, but more importantly, on each day, we feel these energies. And as you know, they feel very different. And by feeling into them through doing lots of different practices, we get some clarity around, oh, you know, oh, I'm a bit scared of that energy, or oh, I actually welcome that energy. It's been suppressed for a while. Oh, and then men leave with more clarity. Well, what do I need to focus now? There is a fifth archetype which is needed more than ever before in society for the benefit of society, and that's the archetype of brotherhood. So when we leave retreat, you know, because you've been on it, that you feel that archetype inside of you. You feel that archetype of brotherhood. And in the sessions that I did this morning with the men online, you know, one of the things that I shared with the group, which was evident and we all agreed with, was that as men, we're dead on our own. We need each other.
Belonging. It is that,
Sure.
that brotherhood, that feeling you get is belonging. And
1,000,000%.
yeah, 100%. Craig, you talked about when you're in your sovereign, you're in your king, you know the vision and the mission. What's yours?
My vision revolves around my highest priority drivers, Rick. We're all different. So, you know, our highest priority drivers manifest as a result of what we perceive to be missing in our life. It's not right or wrong, it's just the way things are. So my real drivers in life at the moment are, number one, service to men, because I feel that it's needed in society. There's a driver in to fill that void. My next driver is around my health, actually, because I know that if I have good health, I have a good role model within me around health, that energy that I have can drive me into this men's work more and more, to be seen, to be heard, to share, to create more services, and to get my gift out into the world before I die. The third one is my relationship with Sarah, my partner. It's important to me. So my mission doesn't only revolve around service to men and my health, it revolves around her as well. So because of that, I don't travel as much as I used to do. I used to fucking travel all over the world, but I don't now. I have an office 5 minutes from where I live. Men come to me. The retreat center is only 50 minutes away. And one of the reasons for that is because I can spend time with Sarah. We even train together on the rings and the jungle gym. So she fits into my mission. And the fourth driver for me is still learning. I love to learn, but my learning now is not just I read a book, oh, I like the sound of that. Everything I read or I watch or I try to learn, or the retreats that I go on, I bring them back into the business. I bring them back into my service. And probably my last driver is finances. But I link that to everything else, because I need finances to grow my business and to get more products out to more men, to serve humanity more. You know, and I need finances to kind of cultivate a home with Sarah as well. And I need finances to, you know, to buy good food, because good food is not cheap. So the clarity of my mission, because you asked the question about mission, is actually a result of clarity around knowing what drives me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered you. I mean, I didn't want to come out with a mission statement, because I mean, mission statements are useful, but only if they're underpinned by that clarity of what is important to you as a man or a woman, and what is actually not that important to you that you can let go of, that you think is important to you. Because when you've got clarity around what's important to you and why, you can go for it, and you can really serve humanity in whatever way that looks like, whether you're a dad at home with his kids, or whether you clean the toilets, or whether you're a lollipop man, or whether you're a CEO, or whether you're an artist. It doesn't matter. What matters is clarity of who you are and where you're going and why you want to do it.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of work around this. With me, is it's a value-driven life, isn't it? It's getting in touch with, like you said, the inner GPS. Our inner GPS system our innate drivers, our values, and making sure that it becomes our decision-making model for everything, living a highly conscious life of what we pay attention to, what we look at, what we feed ourselves, what we do. It's making sure we're in complete alignment with ourselves and living consciously. But Craig, I'm gonna wrap this up with a question. So we haven't touched too much on it, and I'm gonna quickly go on to it now. For the listeners that don't know, Craig has been an absolute fucking mastermind in the world of rugby and enjoyed massive success. Has been part of the team that have won championships with everyone he's worked with, from Wasps to Leicester Tigers to Uruguay's brilliant wins at the World Cup, most recently with Fiji, and heading things up like that. What I want to ask you, Craig, it's not to catch you on the hop. What does winning mean to you now? What does winning represent to the Craig White of today?
Okay. So winning for me ultimately is lying on my deathbed and feeling into my life and breathing a sigh of yes. Now, coming back from that, to give a bit more detail, winning for me on the inside is a feeling that I'm loved and I'm loving the others in my life that mean something to me. Winning on the outside for me is just a reflection of my drivers. That's, so winning for me is filling retreats up, doing another retreat higher up for the men that have been through, called the King Retreat, unleashing my new program, which is going to be called the Embodied Leader, which is a 28-day program with me every day from 6 till 9, Sundays off. Winning for me is having an online program. Winning for me is running a festival for men. Winning for me is growing a team of men around me that could help to get the message out to more men. Winning for me is writing a book. Winning for me is having a great relationship with Sarah and 2 dogs and a home in nature. Winning for me is keep learning. Winning for me is having a healthy body that can move in ways and be mobile, so I can do more things in the world and have more energy to be present with people. And winning for me is having some level of financial stability. That's winning for me, Rick.
I love that, mate. I love that. It's beautiful. You know what's beautiful about that is, I think some people think win at life is these big grand things. It never is it? It's pure presence. It's pure presence and service.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes that so relatable. So even I sit here breathing a massive sigh of relief when you say it. I'll be the first to admit that recently I've been a bit overwhelmed with, where are things going? Am I not thinking big enough? And just you saying that makes me breathe a massive sigh of relief myself. Just be like, oh yes, like I'm in alignment with Craig here, and I'm in alignment with myself. My actions match to my values and my vision, and actually I'm already fucking winning, which is awesome. So yeah, Craig,
you mentioned the word presence. It's good to finish on that wonderful word. And practices can help, meditation and embodiment and cultivating present moment awareness. But I also believe, and we're relating this to men, of course. I mean, it's okay to meditate, brilliant. It's okay to do yoga, brilliant. It's okay to do martial arts, whatever. But if you've not got clarity on who you are in the world, where you're going in the world, what toolboxes you've got, how you're going to express them, having a sense of purpose. You don't have to write it in a statement, but having a sense of purpose to get up out of bed in the morning, then you won't be present. You'll be stuck in your head. So presence is a sense of rootedness in the world of, I've got clarity and I'm in flow. Let's go for it.
Beautiful. Just touch on that quickly, Craig, as well. I think a lot of men think that to get that presence and to find what it is that goes on inside, they think they have to sit still in meditation and yoga. But most men don't, do we? Nature is such a big innate thing for us. We don't spend enough time in, whether it's in the sea, whether it's in the woods, whether it's, fucking walking up a mountain. That can be meditation. That can be our way of finding presence, of getting in the deep with ourselves without, chucking on our hot pants and sit in the back of a yoga class, or trying to sit cross-legged. It's fucking uncomfortable and be still. It doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought nature into the equation. The strongest, for me, the three most strongest potent medicines in the world are nature, sleep, and intimate connection.
Yeah, I'd agree. Definitely. I'd agree.
Rick, I loved that, mate.
You loved
I loved it.
It's been fun, mate. Listen, where can everyone find you? Tell everyone what's coming up.
Yeah, so you can find more about Men Without Masks on menwithoutmasks.com. You can find Men Without Masks on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You can find CraigWhiteMentoring.com, which is my personal website. You find Craig White Mentoring on Insta and Facebook and LinkedIn. Find my personal page on LinkedIn, Craig White. And yeah, feel free to reach out. Got a lot of exciting things happening in Men Without Masks. Still running our retreats. We've got one on September the 4th, just in under a month. We've got one in November. We've got some next year. Next year, we want to also run a festival for men, a camping festival, which will be big. Soon I'll be unleashing officially a 28-day program called the Embodied Leader, where you get access to me every day, apart from Sundays, for 28 days, and some resources to support that. I offer private intensives in a beautiful part of the world where I live called Hebden Bridge for one-on-one mentorships with men. And soon we'll be unleashing an online program. And I also facilitate a curriculum of mentorship for professional sports coaches and professional athletes and players. You can find that through Craig White Mentoring.
Whitey, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was buzzing when I came on here. I'm buzzing even more now. Thank you so much for today. Let's have a quick checkout, buddy.
Yeah. I'm checking out of this with joy, flow, and responsibility to share my message with the world. I'm out.
Beautiful. I'm checking out with deep connection, a lot of love, and a great feeling of deep fucking purpose. I'm out.
Aho, brother.
Aho. Cheers, Whitey.
Cheers, mate.